Hello and welcome to another episode of the Stats. This time I'd be doing seeing how I did for Elimination Chamber. So let me tell you what went down, and to see if I gotten a clean sweep. Even if the match was yesterday and there like hundreds of videos of this up already, I for one got stuck doing something else. So anyways, let's get started. The first match of the night ended up being for the kickoff show, which wasn't Mansoor vs. Jinder Mahal. But as you can see the image on my right, Rey Mysterio vs. The Miz. For this match I had Rey winning. Dominic had done little things to the Miz during this kickoff show match. Then towards the end, Miz grabbed the chair on hopes to use it but Miz then acted like he got hit by the chair from Dominic, which sent Dominic to the back, but the match quickly ended when Rey did a surprise roll up and got in the 1, 2, 3 and won. The first match for the actual show ended up being Universal Championship, Roman Reigns vs. Goldberg. I had Roman still being the champ, making him being champion another day. Once again Roman came out fist. He is the longest reigning champion in 35 years of being champ for 537 days. It took about a minute before they attacked each other. Roman hit Goldberg head a few times on the announcer table. When they did get back in the ring, Goldberg did a spear which did not work. There was a Superman punch later that did not work. Roman was going to attempt the spear, but Goldberg beat him to it with his own. At the end, though, Goldberg was put in a guillotine, causing him to pass out. I ended up being right, adding another day to his reign. I thought this would be a much quicker match. The match itself was 6 minutes, 18 seconds and 59 milliseconds. The next match was the Women's Elimination Chamber match. Belair showed up first, but we know she will exit the pod last given what went down last Monday. So then the order went Doudrop, Rhea Ripley, Nikki, LSH. It was Liv who came out next and lastly Bliss. I was glad Ripley did not start the match, so since this was Saudi Arabia the women had to cover their bodies, which leads to wearing this skin-tight suit. Anyways, Bliss did win the first Women's Elimination Chamber match and her pod had a swing in it. So if you're watching the match on TV you had no idea that Bliss would be in a pod. The match started with Nikki and Liv. Then the first pod opened up being Doudrop. Doudrop attacked Nikki first once Nikki offers her hand. The next pod to open up was Ripley. So we already now know what pod be next. Ripley went after Nikki. Nikki claimed the chamber in which she fell off because of Ripley and gave her a riptide, pining Nikki. The pod opened up for Bliss and went after Liv. Morgan managed to do a power bomb to Doudrop and pinning her, making Doudrop the second one to be eliminated. Then once she was pinned, Belair came out. She lifted Liv and then held her with one hand. Bliss did her twisted bliss to Morgan, eliminating her. Then quickly Belair did KOD to Ripley and eliminated her. Now it's Belair and Bliss. Lots of good back and forth, but at the end Belair won. So I was wrong. Naomi and Ronda Rousey vs. Sonya, Deville and Charlotte Flair. With Rousey's arm tied behind her back. I had the heels winning this one. Sonya took her arm out of the sling once the arm was tied behind her back. Rousey was holding her own with only one arm. Then at one point Flair rammed the other shoulder into the post. Once that happened it became one-sided with Sonya and Flair having the upper hand. Then at one point Naomi was finally tagged in. It did not last long as Rousey was tagged back in and ended up winning by submission on Sonya. So I got another one wrong. Next up is Drew McIntyre vs. Madcap Moss. Falls count anywhere. I have Drew winning this one. Off the gate Corbin attacked Drew with Moss. Moss got thrown into the LED board at one point. Then a bad Alabama slam to Moss. Corbin did hit Drew with a chair and threw him to the barcade, and it still wasn't enough. Then towards the end, Drew got help from Angela and did a Claymore, getting the 1, 2, 3, so I got another one right. The next match ended up being for the Raw Women's Championship, Becky Lynch vs. Lita, where I have Becky winning. There was good back and forth in this match. At one point both had gotten the upper hand during the match. There were good amount of close calls that are just amazing, but at the end, Becky still is champ and I was right. The next match being the SmackDown Tag Team Championship, the Usos vs. the Viking Raiders, where I have the Usos still bring chaps. Before the match started the Usos came out of nowhere and attacked the Viking Raiders before the match even started. so the match never even started, but I did say the Usos will still be champions, so I was right. WWE Championship: Bobby Lashley vs. Brock Lesnar vs. Seth Rollins vs. AJ Styles vs. Riddle vs. Austin Theory Elimination Chamber. I have Brock winning this one. Bobby was the first to enter the chamber, then it went Styles, Riddle, Theory, Rollins, and lastly, Lesnar. In which Lesnar gets a pod even if he showed up last. So it'd be Theory versus Rollins to start off. Then Theory went through Bobby's pod, knocking Theory and Bobby out. Speaking of, Riddle was the first to leave his pod. Bobby left the pod first, but at that point is unclear if he would return. As Bobby was leaving, Styles was next to get out of the pod. The next one to be out of the cage would have been Bobby, but Bob kicked out of his pod. The first to be eliminated was Bobby due to concern probable, then it went fast, so it went Rollins, Riddle, Styles leaving Theory and Lesnar. Theory tried to escape the chamber and failed. He ended up getting an F5 on top of the pod, and at the end, Brock won, in which I was right. So I have 6 right and 2 wrong. For this show where I end up with a C, but overall of having 598 right and 208 wrong, making it still a C. Next show will be for AEW Revolution, that is on March 6th at the Edition Financial Arena in Orlando, Florida, which will be my last stats show. I gave it a try, and I am only one person doing this show, and the fact no one watches the stats